the chairman of the subcommittee for their kindness and their support of the Jackson Lee amendments. Let me indicate that in the sum total of these amendments, amendments number 124, 125, 126, my amendments promote and support or promote support for national historic areas in our nation, promote partnership strategies in preserving our urban wildlife refuges, and promotes outreach programs by the Smithsonian Institution on the fantastic historical and artistic knowledge our Smithsonian houses and facilitates, and an appreciation for America and all over the world. In particular, my amendment number 124 is an amendment that expresses support for the national historic areas and for continuation of national policy of preserving for public use historic sites, buildings, and other objects of national significance. My amendment number 125 is an amendment that would prohibit the use of funds to eliminate the Urban Wildlife Refuge Partnership, and additionally, an amendment that would prohibit the use of funds to limit outreach programs administered by the Smithsonian. The idea behind these three amendments is to again recognize the great history of this nation, even as young as this country is. In particular, I have in my congressional district, Freedmanstown, that had the Logan's Camp and was a place of freed African-American slaves, which grew into an amazing community. In addition, the Allen brothers that founded Houston are buried in that same neighborhood. In addition to that, we have something called the Juneteenth Trail. That is the trail of which the slaves traveled from Galveston up to Houston with an enormous amount of history, and that is part of the history of celebrating Juneteenth. To preserve that is very important. In the Second Amendment, I want to make sure that we maintain a program that helps in introducing urban youth to the wonders of wildlife and historic preservation. And finally, I think it is important that we recognize the historic importance of the Smithsonian and continue to emphasize its outreach capacity to ensure that it reaches Americans of all levels to speak about the story of this great nation. My amendments, again, ask the simple question: is our history worthy of knowing and studying and preserving? It is. And is it important to work with our state and local governments to help them preserve their history? My amendments answer that question by supporting policies that will work with state and local governments, that will reach out to urban youth, that they can understand the wildlife preservation through the Urban Wildlife Refuge Program, and then, of course, the Smithsonian that, in fact, Mr. Chairman, provides an eye to the history of this nation. I ask my colleagues to support Jackson Lee Amendments 124, 25, and 26 in the en bloc amendment. With that, I yield back.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from Maine reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.